And speaking of rebels, we're going to head over now to the 6 counties, which used to be known as the occupied 6 counties, but now it's as British as Finchy, because the Provisional Sinn Féin and the IRA are now having their statements written by 10 Downing Street. They're administering British rule in Ireland. They enforced British law in Ireland, and they're telling the youth of Ireland, do not join the Republican movement, join the police force and enforce that, so we can get our pensions, our British pensions, and get our lovely houses in that foreign country to the south in County Donegal. And we head over to speak with Andy Martin, and throughout the show we've been talking about Easter commemorations that were held up in the Bronx, where we went into Woodlawn Cemetery to honor Joe Steins with the Irish Freedom Committee. We didn't need a permit. Then we headed over to Broadway, where Kathleen O'Brien with the Friends of Irish Freedom held a commemoration. I don't think they needed a permit to do it. But in Ireland, to commemorate the men and women of 1916 in the 6 counties in Derry, you need a permit to do that. So you have to go to the police force, of which Provisional Sinn Féin sit on, and beg them for a permit to commemorate the men and women of 1916. And with us on the line is Andy Martin. Andy, what happened in Derry when the people of Derry went to commemorate the men and women of 1916?
Well, basically, whenever they come in, we're standing there waiting to commemorate, and the police can charge them in, as per usual. They said they were trying to speak to the organisers of the parade. Now, we know that they were trying to disrupt the parade, trying to go in and probably arrest the colour party or whatever. But the youth of Derry stood firm against them, you know, and repelled them. They weren't allowed in near the parade. So.
And what was the reason that they were charging the parade?
Well, they were coming in basically to disrupt it. They said that there was no permit applied for. I mean, obviously, Republicans, we're not going to apply to the RUC for a permit to commemorate the Republican dead in an Irish cemetery, in an Irish town in Ireland, to a British police force. They were basically coming in to make sure it didn't happen, and because the youth, as I said, stood firm against them, it happened, and it was a great success.
But then I understand afterwards there was resistance with petrol bombs and bricks and bottles being thrown at the RUC then afterwards.
Well, before and afterwards.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they tried. It started when the police tried to drive down into the gateway of the cemetery where the crowd was assembling, but they were repelled by the youth, and I believe then afterwards there was some resistance against them as well.
And this was probably, statements were probably issued condemning this by former Republicans in Derry.
Well, there were statements from all the political elite in the north of Ireland. You know, all the constitutional nationalists condemned it. Were saying, basically trying to make out that this was some sort of organised resistance. It was the Republican movement enticing youngsters, you know, to enticing them into trouble or whatever. I mean, that wasn't the case. It was an organic resistance. I mean, the youth of Derry don't need to be told to resist the police, and they don't need to be organised to resist the police. They know what the police do every day, you know.
Now, one of the reasons we're having you on, normally we would have on from Derry, we'd have on Gary Donnelly, who we've had on many times on this show, and I had the pleasure of meeting him when I was in Derry last year, working on the political campaign of Peggy O'Hara in Derry, and that RUC had taken him out at a checkpoint, threatened to kill him, broke his arm, released him, arrested him again, raided his house. Martin O'Neill, a taxi driver, he was beaten, his taxi taken away. And Michael Gallagher and Paddy McDade were in Donegal and were arrested by the Free State forces and are now currently in jail in the 26 counties. What happened there? I mean, they weren't arrested and held in the 6 counties, but now they can't even get out on bail, and they're being charged with membership of an illegal organization, you could say, living in a foreign jurisdiction, which is the 6 counties.
Well, basically, in Free State, they use internment on remand, we call it. It's basically, they charge you with membership of Ugly and Hearn, otherwise known as the IRA. And that's more or less a holding charge. Now, they can throw that on any Republican. There's no burden of evidence needed on their behalf initially to hold the people. Now, what they'll do then is they'll hold them for a period of months while they go looking for the evidence to connect them with the IRA or whatever, or, you know. So it's used against Republican activists in the South. It's used against them frequently.
But Eddie,
it's used to basically disrupt political activity. Now, what happened in the case of Gary Donnelly, Michael Gallagher, Martin O'Neill and Paddy McDade, they were basically went over the border to get petrol. Because the border is only a mile away from Derry City, and the petrol is cheaper in the south. They went over the border to fill the car with petrol, and they were pounced upon by the Free State Special Branch and held on membership charges. So that's basically what happened. And it's been done to disrupt their political activity. Now, in the north, the RUC in the north need a bit more to hold the likes of Gary or Mickey or Paddy or Martin. So what they've obviously done together through MA5, which I must say is one of the most successful cross-border bodies in existence, what they've done is, what they're trying to do is then get them into the south and arrest them in the south, whereby they could be interned with little or no evidence for a period of time.
You know, actually, the only evidence you need in a special criminal court in the south is the word of a senior police officer saying, I believe that man is in the IRA, and that you can be convicted just on that.
Well, that's basically it. Now, they run around looking for backup evidence, but I've heard that some of the evidence that was shown to one of the four men was a book of Bobby Sands' writing that was in the car that they were arrested in. So they had it in an evidence bag, and they were showing it to them saying, this is proof that you're in the IRA.
Yeah, and Martin, if you look at it another angle, the four of them, you could say, are from the United Kingdom. They certainly lay claim to that area. Is there any protest from London saying that four of their citizens are now being held in Dublin?
I would say the political direction to arrest those men came from London.
Yes. I mean, it is so bizarre that the British can't hold them, so they just call, like you say, MI5 is probably the best cross-border organization that has developed in Ireland, and say, listen, based on our laws, we can't hold them, but we want you, our little lackeys down in Dublin, you can hold them for us.
Well, it's ironic that Republicans used to take refuge in the Free State. Now there's Republicans who won't go into the Free State because they're afraid of getting arrested. You know what I mean? The Republicans are hiding in Britain to not be arrested in Ireland. In terms, that's the way the British would look at it, you know.
And what about
it's bizarre to say the least.
What about their former comrades in provincial Sinn Féin? Have they been loud in their protests about this?
There hasn't been a word about it, you know. Really, nothing's been said about it. They're just glad to get the likes of Gary Donnelly and all out of their hair. They're a thorn in their side as well, you know. Now,
Andy, another angle on this, and we've been covering this with Eamon McCann. There was a peaceful protest at an American company in Derry called Raytheon, a defense contractor that's supplying missiles to the Israelis that bombed Lebanon. 3 of these 4 are up on charges for that peaceful takeover of Raytheon. So there could be the angle there that they don't want these people to even go to trial up north, that they'll be in jail in the south.
There's that aspect. There's also the aspect whereby they're trying to discredit the Irish anti